This here is the new paddock for today. This has been reserved for a while, and it sits here in the shade of those oak trees, and that is where they will soon come to graze. They are currently getting some water and nip along the animal lane, and eventually they will discover this, because now this lane here is open. I need to fix a little bit of the fence because the door wasn't, or the gate wasn't ready. The thing is, it was prepared but not completed, and I will quickly do this. So they will come along this animal lane here, and then they will find that this area is available, and then they will start grazing there. Another look at the rye here in the trench. It has grown quite a bit. Summer is here. We are still in May, but the temperatures are the temperatures typical for summer. So 35 centigrade is definitely summer. And this is how this looks like. All the other grasses that we seeded are gone to seed, or have gone to seed. And now they will dry out at the top and distribute the seed, and hopefully then we have more of the same in autumn when the rain comes back. There might be a rain shower here and there, but so far there's nothing in the forecast, but the sky is cloudy. Look at that growth here. All the green part is what has grown this year, since this tree started growing again. You can see the trunk underneath. That is almost a meter. At the same time, this one here is also growing now, but before it kept behind. I would think that has to do with the roots and the soil and finding a water source and nutrients, why the growth is so different. But it might be that this time this tree has figured it out and will now start growing just like the others. I'm always watching the control group tree. So this one has never received any irrigation, and it is very similar like the one that I showed you before. So it is lagging behind, but this time you can also see very clearly that the new growth is more rapid than the old growth. So there you see the trunk from before, and now you see all the green part. That is what came up just now. And if I zoom out, you can see another one that sits there in the center of the berm, and there a similar thing happened. So there's already more than twice the size or the growth of the new growth versus the stem that was there from before when the cows attacked it. That's very interesting what these three can manage to do. So here we are at our paddock A17. What you see here in the foreground is the old platform where they used to, it's called winding, when they separate the grain from the husk of the grain, of the wheat. That is what they used to do here. So that surface is basically stone, but there is enough dirt on top of it that turned into soil, and this process continues, which is why suddenly we have all these plants here. And I will now go a little bit further down and have a look. They have been here since yesterday, I would assume since 2 o'clock, and it is now 6 o'clock, so the other day, so a little bit more than 24 hours, and tomorrow in the morning they will be moved elsewhere. So this is how it looks like when you look a little bit closer. That exposed spot there is from an experiment. There was a hole where we tried something to make charcoal, and therefore Not a lot grew because it is recently disturbed. These guys over there are talking to the neighbors, and you can see further down the animal lane, that is the group that went for a drink. And this is the very nice trampling. So this works because there is enough forage that there is something that can be trampled. And I walk around. This looks all very positive. And there, where that group is, last year we saw Cynodon the Bermuda grass. And I hope that this year we will see a little bit further out. Because this area definitely has a lot of moisture. After all, there in the background, that is our shallow well. And here to the right we have the pond, the big one. So there's definitely enough moisture in here. Just need to have enough plant cover so that we can bring this into summer. So this will now be the test. Because this is now the last grazing before actual summer is there. Well, it is already there. Because if you look at the temperatures, we are in the 35 centigrade range already. So that is definitely summer. So it will be interesting to see how this comes back and how it continues to be once these guys tomorrow morning are out. And I have to say, we never had that much forage in here, so this is the first time. And I'm kind of a little bit happy, because as far as I know, we received half of the rain that we got the years before. So that is very impressive. Unfortunately, I don't have the big camera with me, just my iPhone. So this is lower resolution. But what I wanted to show you before it's gone, so this comes from the encinas, the oak trees. And this is basically the flower that gets pollinated and then will produce acorns. And I have not seen this until today, that we actually have this all over the place. So what you see here comes from that tree and probably also the one over there. And this is a very, very positive sign, because that means that those trees have moved into a cycle of regenerating themselves, to put it this way. And you might be able to see this, how it looks like on the tree. So this is something new. And I also see that the leaves are of a lighter green. So those must be newer leaves. So something very positive is going on. You can see there is a lot of new growth on that tree. If you look closely, you can see old leaves that are darker and brighter ones that are new. So this certainly has to do with what we are doing. This job here is going a lot slower than expected, and it is also one sheep less. The missing sheep is alive, don't worry. I can show you the missing sheep in a moment. The doggies have to stay in their enclosure, 6 of them. The 2 females are outside, so this is Schneeflocke, and Checker is hiding in the shade under the car. Mama dog, Miriam, is also outside, but she's not interested in hunting anything. So that is no problem. And I know that Checker and Schneeflocke all alone will not try to attack anyone. It is usually the guys who start this. And they are in the enclosure. So this is how we play this at the moment. The idea is to use the sheep to clean up this area a little bit. It won't be perfect, because for that we need more sheep or let them stay here for a lot longer. But at least we do something good. Other areas are not disturbed for the moment, so that means the forage there is saved. And here we don't have to use the machine for most of the stuff. What we also plan to do next, once this is done, you see here these metal sheets, they have been buried in forage, so they will be removed once the sheep are moved. And there is more places here in the compound where we can work with the sheep. Today is pretty much a lazy Sunday, so there's not much to do except gather some strength for the week. Even I do mostly IT work, this is also brain sucking, so you are tired from sitting on the chair and thinking hard. So it's not that much different than to work outside on farm stuff. And what I wanted to show you also is, this is basically the way to use a very long net for a very small space. It's not perfect, but it works. The only challenge is the exposed soil is now so hard that this hardly penetrates, even with a hammer. So in here we have the prisoners. Well, not really. It is for their own protection, and I show you why. So this here is mama sheep and her lamb, and the problem is mama sheep was attacked by flies and the resulting larvae because she was urinating a lot, and that kept the wool very wet, and the insects took advantage, and then the larvae started to eat her alive. And this is how it looked like under the wool, and she was basically being eaten. And it was a good thing that we removed all the wool, it was time anyway, and were able to treat her, so that this you will not die from a fly attack. Flies do kill sheep, and that is a huge problem. So in here she gets some water. Here and there we give her something green. So that is the leftovers from today's ration. You might have heard she was urinating, and that is what sheep do during this part of the year a lot. And that is part of the reason why there is a problem in the first place. The young one is also healthy, absolutely no problem. And this is how it goes for a while, until this has cured, and then they will both rejoin their little flock. This building used to be the place to store some straw. It was constructed when all the other things got constructed, the older parts, so somewhere between 1970s and 1980s. So the door that you see there, that is where the straw came in, and they were using small bales, those 25 kilo ones, and that is what they used. And Schneeflocke here is suffering from the heat, but she wants to see what is going on. And I will now go over there to have a look at what the cows are doing. So you can clearly see that there is some communication going on, and I would believe some of the cows on the other side are in heat, which is why our bull is standing there. He does not like to discriminate. And also note that the neighbor has put a bell on one of the cows to basically have a lead cow, and then everybody else will follow the sound of the bell. Because now it is only a few animals. It's those white ones, you have seen them in another video earlier. So before he had some 90 adult cows, and now he removed them, who knows why, and now only those white ones are there, and that's maybe 20 animals. And we don't see all of them at the moment. And because of that, given the huge size, it's 130 hectares, they can spread out enough, and so there is some growth because the pressure is less. Doesn't mean that this place is suddenly becoming better. It is just that the plants have a little bit more time to regrow. That floating island here in the pond is also quite interesting. It just showed up and it goes pretty deep. Not sure if you can see this here on the video, but there is something underneath. You can see the size of it. Some of the things that establish themselves are already pretty big, like this one here. Some of you made remarks about the new bull. So this there to the left is the one that we purchased as a breeding bull when we were thinking about breeding with a Limousin bull, and supposedly he is a purebred Limousin. I very much doubt that, and I did not ask for the paperwork. It's basically purchased based on looks. And yes, he is definitely a lot smaller than the other three guys. And he is from around here, and he's not mixed. So maybe it's no coincidence that the Limousin heifers were also very small, given that this bull is relatively small, while the other animals are much bigger. So it is pure coincidence. So here comes one of the older three, and you can see he is of massive size. While this guy is a lot smaller. Based on the birth data that we received from the sellers, the young bull is now 3 years 7 months old, while the others are 4 months and 4 years and 2 months. So that's not that big of a difference. So it must be that the young bull is simply of smaller size. Instead of using a machine and spending gasoline on it, we put up this mesh here so that the sheep can take care of all these plants. And as you can see in there is a lot of stuff. That stuff is hard to get out, but after the sheep has removed some of the plants, that will then be a lot easier. Down there they are in the shade. They are a little bit, they are easily scared. It's just a few sheep, and we usually don't interact with them, which is why this is new to them, and it makes it a little bit difficult. But there's enough forage for a few days, and that way we don't have to work, and it's a more natural solution. And going forward we should definitely have more things like that going on. We are picking the spots and the shade on purpose, because this Andalusian sun is very, very powerful, and that easily burns whatever young plant we may put out. So that is the hope, to have some medium shade, and therefore it grows better. Nonetheless, any plant, as heat-loving as it might be, still needs irrigation when young. There are no roots that could reach the water. We like experiments. This is a tomato. Maybe it will climb up the tree. I almost forgot to film this now that the cows are out. This is now the second day. That is the place where I made this 40-second video in the night. So this is how they left it after a little bit more than 24 hours of grazing. And this is now supposed to come back a little bit with Bermuda grass and maybe other things for summer, because it's already 35 centigrades and we will see. So this will be their test. This became available this morning, and since about 9 o'clock they are here. It is 2 o'clock now and they will soon leave this area because we don't want to overgraze this now. As you can see, some of them are already resting, so they certainly have the belly full and they're ruminating. So that should be enough intake for today. And up there in Zone C there is enough straw available and some rough fodder to supplement. This is our pig receiving area, the place where we had the giant cabbage. The giant cabbage has gone to seed and you don't see it anymore, except the one there, somewhere there. And we now have a lot of very tall flowers. And we still have the sprinkler there in the center, so we can use this also. And there is a sunroof, because tomorrow we will receive 15 pigs. They are about 50 kilo each, and we will see. So the idea is to have some pigs. They don't have the nose ring, so they can work, and we will feed them well. And this is the welcome present. And in here they will also learn what the electric fence means once the wire is exposed. For the first few days I guess they won't see anything because of all the vegetation. But that is exactly as it should be. And we will move them to different places where there is water and they can uproot the soil. They can also help with swales and all this. And we'll see how that goes. So there we have an additional workforce. And this morning we had 3 cows in this area here. This is where the vetiver was planted. And I wanted to get this a little bit lighter so that the vetiver gets more sun and starts going. There's also some irrigation available here. But I believe that the animal impact here is not enough. So I just told the guys that we need to bring the cows back tomorrow, so that this is a lot more grazed off than it is right now, because you can hardly see the vetiver, and that means that it won't grow, very likely. But then I believe once it's hot enough and the other things don't like it anymore, the vetiver will then surpass them. But we have seen that the vetiver gets actually outshaded when it is still not fully established, and then the cold season grasses and other plants will win over it, and that is what we want to avoid here. This is the end of the shift, so all the workers are going home now. They have done their job and now it is rest time, and they will have their dinner in form of straw, so you can say. Let's go and check out the plantings, old and new. This here is sun hemp. There are also many other plants that we have not put there. Those come from the seed bank that is there, and because of our intervention they germinated and are now growing with the resident moisture. Here we have the growing Sudan grass, which is growing without any irrigation and without any rain. The last rain it got was on the day of planting it. I wonder what caused this. Looks like someone has been in here. Who knows what that was? Very much doubt that this is the effect of a thermal going off, wind. I have no idea. Looks weird. And this here looks like burnt. The sun is hot now, so it might well be. It's not really burnt, it's the color of the straw, of the spent straw compost, raw compost that we put here. But it does definitely look like these beans have some stress. It is too hot for them. So I would think. There's also leaves from the oak tree above. But it doesn't really matter. This needs to survive without rain, and it is for biomass. So this is not a crop that we intend to harvest. It is there to feed the soil. But I would think it doesn't look that healthy. But then I have not seen these beans before, how they are supposed to look like. Here and there is a single plant which does look happier. So this one seems to be producing beans there on the top. And if you look at these, that is also the case. But the ones in a bunch up there, they look different. What we did not have in this abundance is that is making acorns. And all of the trees show this. And there's a lot of it also on the ground. So here you can see it. And I did not see this in the last 2 years. Up until now, I have not seen any bees. And this looks like a bee. So this is also very positive. This whole system seems to be waking up. These big ones here are also interesting. Who knows what it is? But it is good. Because every plant that wants to come here is greatly welcome. So this is now the area where we had the trouble with the backhoe, and then the mules came and we were able to seed a mix of alfalfa, corn and sunflowers, and looks like things are coming up. At least I can definitely see corn. So if I pen down this down here, this to me looks like corn. These guys here seem to be different. So I would assume the pointy ones are the corn and the other one is sunflower. Similar image there. Pointy one corn and the other sunflower. I don't think we will see alfalfa, but maybe we do. So there is something smaller, and it might be it. There's also a group here, those little ones. That might well be it. I doubt that this is the subterranean clover. So I would guess, because of the abundance and the pattern, that this might be the alfalfa that is coming up. There's a similar group. So this is the berm with the pond behind it. And the whole area where we tilled and seeded sits below. And goes all the way down there. It is now several weeks that we have had no rain. And that is what we are being left with. There are some denser patches of sun hemp. You can spot another one also over there. Oh, right there in the distance. This one here. So I'm inside CT1 and I'm looking up towards the swale with the Paulownia trees. And they have grown tall and the leaves are big. I want to go there next and have a closer look. Look at this guy here. This is already a massive tree. The grasses that were there before in the form of seed and never grew very well have also taken off. This here is actually a high spot in the CT1 swale, and it sits pretty much below the pond area up there. So I would think that there's a subterranean flow that goes down here and comes out there. And one can clearly see that this is very moist. This is right along the path. And this patch here of other plants is also a lot lusher than all around. So right here in front of me there's nothing, and then it starts, and then it's lush, and there over there at the other end there it stops also. So this is all where these plants can reach the water source, the water that is coming up from that swale, from that pond. And as you can see, the light might not be perfect because it's almost 8 o'clock now. The bottom of the swale gets populated. They are establishing themselves there. So I think there is no need to seed anything. This will just work out by its own. And that is the swale where we had pigs. So this is all CT1 where we kept the pigs for a few months. And they destroyed everything, but apparently they did a lot of good. And you can see also here, there you can see that it's drying out. Therefore you have those ruptures there. And there you can see There are a few plants trying to get a hold of moisture. That is definitely still there. Of course, we are at the very beginning of summer, and we will see how this goes when we are 2 months in. The forecast talks a lot about clouds, but they come and go, and it's just cloud and sunshine. A few days back there were a dark cloud and we got a few sprinkles of water, but it's not really rain. So there is something going on, but it's not leading to a thunderstorm and therefore a heavy rain shower. That sunhemp here gets a little bit of shade, and it looks further ahead than in other places. It's a little bit taller. And all that we will soon graze according to schedule. So first there come other things, and then eventually the bovine family will come back here. This of course by then will be a little bit drier than it is right now, but we stick to the schedule as it seems to work. So to give you some numbers, this has 39 days now since the last grazing event, and we let it go to 45 days. So that will be when the bovine family will be in here, and we'll make little sectors, strip grazing to ration this, and we play it like that we bring them in the morning, and shortly before the guys leave the animals will be out, so no free grazing, and instead they will go up to the area where we have straw. So basically it's a half day of grazing and a half day of processing the material, and then they continue on straw, and next morning they come back. Of course it would be very nice to have a human here who could do this after 1500 hours, and now, which is basically 8 o'clock, so sunset will be by 9 I guess, but there is nobody who can actually take care of this, so we need to play it that way, or have a completely fenced in area where we can leave them overnight. We do have these other areas, but not here, not yet. It appears that everybody is where they are supposed to be. So there you see them eating straw, and there in the background you see another huge pile of straw. That is the straw for biomass. It is not meant to be eaten, but if it's dry and not too bad they will still eat it, but it's not meant for them. The good one we have in a different place, and we bring it up here step by step, but this is kind of the bedding material, so we will spread this out to cover the area so that we are building up soil from below.